Session 14, and I'd like to welcome Carol Ireland, CEO of Epilepsy Action Australia, for our session on best practices for medicinal cannabis prescribers and the focus on new education tools for healthcare practitioners. Oh, this is around patient access. Please listen up. Over to Carol.
Hello, everyone. You can hear me? You can. What a journey it has been. I became involved with the medicinal cannabis movement, as I call it, back in 2014. So nearly a decade. A lot's changed, and perhaps some things haven't changed. I'm very much a patient advocate, but I think we all agree that some of the key players in looking at access for our consumers is how our healthcare professionals are educated, informed, and the confidence they have. So let me introduce the panel today, and they've moved out of order, but Hugh Tait is the Medical Services and Operations Manager at MedReleaf Australia, previously a pharmacist in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales. Dr. Orit Holtzman is a functional and cannabinoid medicine practitioner and co-founder and director of Leura Wellness and the co-founder and president of the Australian and New Zealand College of Cannabinoid Practitioners. Stephane Kain is currently Service Development Manager at Epilepsy Action, but she's been instrumental in project managing the new Cannabinoid service, assisting patients with a variety of conditions, not just epilepsy. She has over 20 years' experience in health and disability. And finally, Dr. James Stewart, way up on the end there, is one of Australia's leading cannabinoid clinicians and uses plant-based medicine over standard pharmaceuticals. So please welcome the panel. And of course, I have to start with a question that is foremost in my mind. For patients, what has changed? Has access changed? Anyone who'd like to start?
Yeah, I guess as a prescriber for I guess one of the original sort of takers of medicinal cannabis, yeah, it's definitely changed. It's become easier, which is fantastic. In the early days, the SASB applications were quite tedious, and now with the authorised prescriber system, it's much easier for us now to get patients access and a bit quicker as well. So that's been fantastic that the TGA have allowed that, and also there's a lot more products on the market now. I remember thinking when the first few flowers entered the market many years ago, I thought I'm going to make it that I try every single flower before it comes on before I prescribe it, so I know exactly what the effects are like, and nope, there's no way I can keep up with that at the moment. So yeah, no, it's become easier for patients to access it for sure.
Hugh?
Sure. I'd say going back probably now almost 5 years back to the first prescription that we saw in the pharmacy in the Northern Rivers, and we had, quite an expensive product that was initiated for a patient. So firstly, that's changed significantly, I'd say, in certain areas, but there's still, a long way to go. But also, I think as a pharmacist, sort of coming to terms with the first prescription in the community, you often were looking around for assistance, and there were very few that had any information or any guidance on how to, I guess, initiate treatment. So education was limited at this stage, so that in turn, I guess, affects, what the patient can access through, healthcare professionals. So over time, that's improved significantly, and we've been able to then, I guess, over time, provide a better service as a pharmacist, and that in turn helps, accessibility to the patient, because word of mouth is one of the most prominent ways that I'd say a lot of our patients are getting access.
Orit, did you have a comment?
So definitely agree with James that access has improved in terms of how quick it is to receive an approval now. So 4 years ago, we didn't just need to get a SASB approval, we also needed to receive a state authority approval. So an approval could have taken a month and even more from when we first seen the patient to when we could prescribe. Well, now it can be done on the spot, basically, if you use your authorized prescriber. So that made a massive difference to patients. And the fact that we have so many products available now has driven the price down as well. So obviously it's still an expensive treatment, but there are more affordable options. The compassionate schemes that some companies offer made it accessible to patients that were not able to access it before. While we still have a long way to go, I do think things have improved and are improving.
So you people are actually obviously very involved in the medicinal cannabis world. What about the broad range of healthcare practitioners? Do we have any knowledge about, your everyday general practitioner out in regional parts of Australia? Have things improved in that regard?
Well, although access has improved, our most recent survey of consumers and healthcare professionals into what the barriers are for access, from consumers' point of view, it's finding someone to speak to finding a GP or a professional who'll have the conversation and then who will prescribe or help them to find an authorised prescriber. And then from healthcare professionals, it's saying really needing to see the evidence base and have that information in front of them and to know where to send their patients or to themselves find how to become an authorised prescriber. So yes, improvements, but yes, still barriers.
Yeah, I think with that, doctors, we're a funny bunch. A lot of us, we like to see evidence. And unfortunately, as we know, the big trials haven't been done, but there's a lot of evidence out there. I mean, that excuse, there's no evidence, that doesn't hold up anymore. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence as well. Example of how things are changing, I guess, with more your traditional GPs is where I was practicing up in Queensland for the last 5 years before I moved here. The older doctor who owned the clinic, when he found out I was prescribing cannabis, told me he didn't want me to prescribe the cannabis, and I said, why not? And he said, because I don't want those people sitting in my waiting room. And I said, what, kids with epilepsy? And he said, don't be stupid, you know what I mean. And I said, no, I don't know what you mean. And then over the next few years, I slowly educated him and got patients to come and talk to him about the benefits that they were getting. And then by the time I left, he'd actually started prescribing a little bit of CBD. So it does come down to education for both the doctors and also for the patients. And I guess that's where, my hands are tied as a clinician, as a prescriber, and someone who does know a lot about cannabis medicine and the endocannabinoid system. I can't educate the public because I'll be seen to be promoting cannabis and I will get a fine, which sucks. So I can't get out there and tell people that this is amazing, this is helping with this is helping with so many things. I've got nearly 3,000 patients that are just getting unbelievable results. I say to people, I reckon I'm the most hugged doctor in the country. I get people crying and hugging me and life-changing, but I can't get online and promote that. I can't get the word out there to the public to say that this is available. And it just shows that I think only what percentage of people know that cannabis is out there, not many in the country. And it's just, our hands are tied, and I think that's a big step that we somehow need to get cannabis out of the Schedule 8, because yes, you shouldn't be going and promoting endone and all that kind of stuff. You shouldn't, bus go past, have you had your endone today, kind of thing. You don't want to see that. But cannabis isn't like that, so it shouldn't be scheduled in the Schedule 8, and it just means that at the moment we can't educate the public, which is what they need, because unfortunately you've got some of the big boys out there, the big business-run companies that are capitalising on an uneducated market, that just think cannabis is cannabis, and no matter what way I take it, it's going to work, and it's not, and it doesn't. And unfortunately, they're capitalising on an uneducated market, which also sucks.
Okay, so that's an important barrier I think you're highlighting there, James. Yeah. Are there other barriers for healthcare professionals?
There certainly would be, opportunities where the barriers could be overcome by very simple incentives, such as, listen to your patients. They, at the end of the day, are coming to us for advice. They often rely on us to go away and do research and then, advise accordingly. And it's a lot of the simplicity around, navigating the space for these patients that start out, they need assistance with understanding enough to go home, to have a conversation with their family, their friends, their loved ones, so that they can come back and make an informed decision whether they believe that this is an opportunity for them. There's a lot of things they have to weigh up. So for a simple solution to a lot of the hurdles could be just simply listening to your patients and understanding, where they're at this stage in their journey, and if they are in fact, eligible, then starting that conversation and giving them the tools to make their decision too.
So patients are coming quite readily to you in your practices and pharmaceutical work. They're coming quite readily. What do you know about all of the patients that aren't coming to you? Do you have any insights?
As a GP previously when I wasn't just doing cannabis consults, yes, the growing number of people coming in questioning about cannabis was growing. Because they're starting to hear that it can treat lots of different things. Lucky they came to me because I had an open mind and I was willing to sort of explore cannabis and learn about it. But unfortunately, some of the older doctors, and probably rightly so, they're at towards the end of their career. They don't want to learn something else. They've been happy pumping out what they've done. It's got the person by, good or bad, up until where they are now, and just learning another thing is a bit too much for them. But that's where the doctors need a bit more education. That it's not that hard. Once you get started, it's really not that hard. And I always try and, when I train my doctors, I break it down and just teach them to start with just CBD. Just don't get overwhelmed, because doctors think, oh my God, I've got to prescribe THC, I'm going to make them psychotic, I've got to get them smoking cones out in the garage. It's like, no, you don't. Give them a bit of oil under the tongue, start with CBD and just start there. And so I just try and break it down into very small sections. Learn your CBD, learn what THC does, and it can be quite simple. But I think again, education is definitely the main thing that we need for doctors. I've actually written several letters to every single university in Melbourne, medical university, and said, I will come and do a free talks on the body's endocannabinoid system for your med students, because they're going to get asked about it when they're out there practicing. Not one university has written back to me. Not one. Not even to say, thank you, James, but no thanks. I've hit them every avenue. I've gone LinkedIn, I've gone mailboxes, I've gone and gone and gone. So if anyone knows any of the universities, we've got to learn about the endocannabinoid system. The most abundant receptor in the brain is a cannabinoid receptor. So that shows you that this system is hugely powerful. So, a great step would be get some cannabinoid medicine taught in med school, and then our doctors will come through understanding about cannabinoid medicine. And it might even make GPing cool again, We're the dorky bunch of doctors, the old GPs, I think. So no one wants to be a GP, but I think a bit of cannabinoid medicine and some cool plant medicine could actually liven things up, and we'd get more doctors coming across to the GP land.
It sounds simple, doesn't it? But I'm sure most of you have been hearing about doctor education for nearly the last decade, and I know after the legalisation of medicinal cannabis in 2016, I was for years being asked, when will it be legal? It was a real problem. So what can we do? We've been lobbying universities, we've been talking with government. We've seen quite a lot of information in the media, quite a lot, in terms of medicinal cannabis. So what can we do? What are the new things? What are the possibilities for helping doctors to gain some more confidence? James, it sounds like a lot of your work is one-on-one, but there are thousands, tens of thousands of doctors out there. What can we do?
I'm happy to take that question. So I think we've been doing quite a bit to help other doctors feel more confident and be more educated. So me and not just myself, I'm a co-founder of the Australian and New Zealand College of Cannabinoid Practitioners, and our goal and purpose was to educate and support, provide peer support and mentorship to other doctors that are interested in cannabinoid-based medicines. The one-on-one is wonderful, but also we do need to have a greater outreach. So as a not-for-profit professional body, we do have that facility to reach other doctors. We have around 200 members, and they are able to feel supported and not isolated in their practice. We have our members-only forum when they can ask questions and begin the discussion. The problem is how to get to the doctors that are not really maybe thinking about cannabis in their periphery or being asked about it by a patient, but are not going to actively seek that education. So they're not going to become a college member yet, or not going to attend a workshop by another education provider that provides medicinal cannabis education. How are we getting to those doctors and raise their awareness and make them feel more comfortable, even if they don't want to prescribe themselves or don't feel like they have the time to include medicinal cannabis in the usual consultations, because that's a big hurdle. So for the mainstream GP that has 5 to 10 minutes consultations where they have to look into all these other aspects of their patient's health and also include a medicinal cannabis prescription within that is very, very difficult. But at least for them to have the awareness that they can refer on if they want to, or learn more and do it themselves if they feel comfortable and feel like they are able to. I think that is still a challenge. And what James has done is admirable with contacting universities, however, unfortunately not successful yet. But yeah, I think we all should do that. We should reach the mainstream medical education and try to get medicinal cannabis included in that type of education as well.
And the Can Guide service that we've developed is addressing the GPs. What we have done is develop an evidence-based information platform that's integrated into the clinical software of 90% of Australian GPs. So 90% of Australian GPs use best practice or medical director. So when they're sitting face-to-face with a patient and they're asked about medical cannabis, the information and resources that they have at their fingertips are the Can Guide resources, which have been developed independent of industry by our clinical nurse consultants in cannabinoid therapeutics with oversight from the Lambert Initiative. So that information is there for the GP, and over the last 12 months, 1,600 GPs have downloaded our information, either for their own education or to give to their patient that they're speaking with. The next step for us, well, we're not quite there yet, but the next step is to develop a prescribers database, so that when a patient is speaking with the GP and they're not a prescriber themselves, but they want their patient to be able to have the discussion with the prescriber at the touch of their fingertips to populate their template for referral to a prescriber, they have the information there within their clinical software. Now, all of that exists for other specialty areas, and there's the opportunity now to develop that for cannabis prescribers. And that's the next stage that we want to take Can Guide. There are further steps. Obviously, those things all have a price tag. We work with HealthShare, who is our e-platform for getting information to consumers. 900,000 consumers search the HealthShare platform every month, and we've had 15,000 visits to our Can Guide medical cannabis space over the last 12 months. So there's a lot of interest there. But what we're really wanting to do next is bring together patients and prescribers. And we've got the tools to be able to do that. And wonderfully, over this last month, we've seen an MOU developed between the MCIA and Can Guide to look at how we can partner to get the funding to be able to develop this next stage to help GPs everywhere to be able to easily refer to prescribers. And then there's one step on from that as well, because some patients might come to their GP and know they want to talk about medical cannabis. But what about all of those patients who might have been living with chronic pain for many years, who haven't thought to initiate this discussion with their GP? The tool that we have available is called a Better Consult tool, and to date 5 million patients have completed this questionnaire before they've gone to see their GP. And it's a questionnaire about why you're going to the GP, what condition have been diagnosed with, what medications have you taken, etc. But also, if it's pain, what's your pain scale, and a quality of life measure as well. And when a patient presents with a profile such as that, we've got the capacity to give a red flag to that GP, or to give them a guidance which might link them through to guidelines for prescribing, or link them through to a Can Guide nurse who could speak them through either referring or becoming a prescriber themselves. So there are some wonderful tools out there to reach these GPs. We're going down the track of looking for the funding to develop them, but also maximising the benefit that we have from this very strong partnership with HealthShare as well.
Thanks, Steph. I'm just going to take a couple of questions from the audience. Where do healthcare practitioners get their information about products?
From the reps. Come around. The reps are actually fantastic. I learned a lot of my early prescribing and product knowledge from reps, from coming around and teaching me what was what. I guess I was lucky back then. Each rep only had a couple of products, whereas I think if you got a rep from some of the companies now, they would unload this suitcase across the table, and that might worry the doctors a bit. They've got to learn all those products. But the reps have been fantastic for teaching things. So.
It relies on the companies actually sending those reps out. Yeah. Anyone else?
I have to give a shout out to my colleague Dr. Gal Hertzberg that compiled the Compendium, which is a fantastic resource for medicinal cannabis products with feedback from healthcare practitioners, and it's free to access. So
yeah, and I use I use Catalyst a lot from Honolly. Tom Brown does. That's another free one with the Australian database, all independent reviews and things like that. So that's another good one as well.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, from MedReleaf, we know we have a clinical support team that has, done, a lot of work in the community, for the past 4 to 5 years, which is resource heavy, and that's a part of probably to reinforce some of the work about, one-on-one, peer-to-peer work is really valuable, and that's, we do our best. Pharmacists and healthcare practitioners, we do love to discuss and to learn from each other. It's always a really easy way for people to establish trust, and we ultimately converse quite frequently about things, and it's a great way for us to all, probably in this room, to be empowered as healthcare practitioners. We're all, we've started our journey, but there are many that haven't, and it relies on all of us to really sort of dig in and do our bit to try and push and remove as much stigma as possible that we are seeing in the healthcare community, because let's face it, there's plenty of patients and doctors that haven't started their journey and haven't been provided with that. So where we would be able to provide access, it's limited to resources, so it does involve and it does require everyone in the industry to help.
And the resources that we've developed for healthcare professionals within the CanGuide space are accessed through our portal, such that the registration information is given, so that information behind that portal gives access to case studies for particular conditions and how they have been treated, and also provides evidence-based material that can be searched by different condition to try and put easily at the fingertips of healthcare professionals the published resources to support them.
Steph, there was a question for you, I think, there, which was, is the CanGuide resource updated with research?
Yes, it is. So that research component of it, which I just mentioned, has published materials that can be searched, and we also have a section of the website which is calling for participants for trials, and also information about where trials are up to and pending publication, and then the publication. So yes.
We've got a question about nurses. I work for the New South Wales Nurses and Midwives Association, and we are the New South Wales branch. We are actively educating our members on medicinal cannabis. What role, if any, do nurses and midwives have?
An enormous role. Patient advocacy, being open and knowledgeable to have informed yet compliant conversations, but having the ability for more people to start these conversations and we keep going back to the patient, but it's the most important part, is giving the patient the opportunity to make their decision and be informed themselves to I guess, take their life back, or to have the opportunity to if they are chronically ill. So nurses have an enormous role.
Much of our content within CanGuide has been developed by clinical nurse consultants, and so there is the clinical aspect of it, but then there's also the day-to-day. What do I do as a patient if I'm travelling overseas to other areas and I'm carrying my medical cannabis? How do I cope with that? Those sorts of lifestyle things that people need to consider when they are prescription medication.
And nurse practitioners can prescribe, so they can actually become prescribers themselves. And nurses that are registered nurses can have a very significant role in supporting the patients in their journey, giving advice. If not prescribing themselves, they can give advice and support that sometimes a busy doctor can't.
We've got a question here about the telehealth practices owned by manufacturers. Those that appear to be non-agnostic prescribers. What are our thoughts about that?
I'll take this
A
one.
little bit of controversy.
Right, I'm going to stand up for this. So, cannabis is amazing. Cannabis is a unbelievable plant that is our medicine. And this is evident because, like I said before, CB1 receptor is the most abundant receptor in our brain. So that tells us that the cannabinoid system and cannabinoids are hugely important in the human body, and also that phytocannabinoids can interact with our own receptors and lock in. So cannabis is nature's medicine, and I truly believe that why our real hospitals and everything are overflowing now is because our natural plant medicines, cannabis, psychedelics, all these things that have been used for years and years have been taken away from us, and we're not healing ourselves. We're not growing these in our backyard, we're not treating our mental health, we're not eating it, all our cannabinoid systems are getting depleted. We have, in this space, we've got the opportunity to help so many lives, and with this amazing industry and this amazing plant. Unfortunately, there are some people doing exactly what the question is about that are taking advantage of this, and it's businessmen coming in, seeing an opportunity to grab a quick buck, and as a result, offering shitty service, prescribing their own products, and really only focused on the bottom line. That's the difference between businessmen and doctors. We focus on patient outcomes. You know, I will never ever post how much I'm making online from my clinics. That's not how it works. I will post patient success stories, whereas there's companies out there posting how much money they're making. Cannabis companies, we're making this much money. It's not about that. It's not about offering shit service. You cannot do an initial consult in under 30 minutes. You cannot. You cannot explain titration. You cannot explain how to connect with the plant. You cannot explain what its side effects are. You can't explain driving laws. You can't explain these in under 30 minutes. How the hell do these companies that are offering Green Friday specials for $39 a consult, how can you explain and give good patient care in 15-minute, 10-minute consults? You can't, and you're ruining the industry. You are. Whoever you are out here, you know who you are, the big boys. Your ads are all over Facebook and social media. Piss off. Seriously, piss off. It's so frustrating. We're all, 99% of us are all on the same page. There's 1%, and unfortunately it's 1 big percent, a few companies out there that are abusing this space, and you're giving people a bad experience with cannabis. Yes, there's some rec people out there that, yep, they just want flower. Bang, you can talk to them, but you can also teach rec users how to use cannabis properly, how to connect with the plant. Use each smoking session as a, set an intention. When you're inhaling cannabis, you're connecting with millions of years of genetics and knowledge with this plant. If you tell people how to do that and connect, then they're going to start using the plant better, and they're going to get more benefit and reduce their consumption. So you can still have a 30-minute consult with a rec user. What you also get is, unfortunately, you get someone's auntie, someone's grandma who's heard about cannabis and heard about how amazing it is, and they go online, Google medicinal cannabis, bang, up pops these guys that pay for the first place on Google. They call these guys, get prescribed a flower for their arthritis, don't know how to use it, never smoked in their life, have a horrible experience with cannabis and never go back to it. Now, I know this is happening because these patients come to me and they tell me who they've been to and what they've been prescribed, and it blows me away. It blows me away that people who run this company can go to bed at night and sleep when they're ripping the public off. So, as you can tell, I'm standing up. I'm pissed off with it, okay? And we need to do something about it because they're getting away with it. Yeah, they're making a shitload of money, but they're getting away with it and they're ruining the industry. So it's got to stop. You can't prescribe your own products, full stop. That's ethically wrong. If it's the right product at the right price, yes, okay? But a lot of the time it's not. A lot of the time it's, hey, we see you're on this product, why don't you come across to ours then? It's a bit more expensive, but it's a bit better. This is wrong, and you're going to get caught, and I hope you do.
Delivered with great emphasis. Thank you, James.
Sorry, took a bit of time there.
Are there other
To
comments?
summarise,
Hugh?
there's a difference between access and treatment. I think that's basically what you've just said. The difference between access and treatment. So I don't have to say much more than that. It's pretty clear.
So while speaking about things like vaping and smoking, we've got a question that's come up. Is the current dominance of flower a deterrent for doctors, given most GPs will never be comfortable prescribing something to smoke or vape? Orit, do you have a comment there?
I'm not sure what the meaning of dominance of flower is, because still the most prescribed dosage form is oral liquid. In Australia, not in other countries, but here it still is oral liquid. I think there is a focus on flowers from the commercial side of things, and that is unfortunate because I think it is driven by the recreational market, infiltrating into the medical market. So it's going to be a continuing issue, but again, education is key. Flower has a very important role to play in patient management, but not as sole management, in my opinion. So again, education about the role of oral products, the role of inhaled products, and how they should be used and prescribed medically. I don't think it should be a deterrence for the usual GP, but again, we need to educate. And I mean, I believe that the only way to prevent this problem from becoming a problem or escalating the problem is the legalization of recreational use. So recreation users can get their flower in the way they wish, and medical users can get the medical advice and support that they need without medical practitioners have to kind of manage patients that are not real patients and do not even want the medical support. So I think everyone will benefit from that.
Thank you, thank you. Well, we're at an industry conference, and one of the questions is, how as an industry can we work together to share education and information for potential patients?
Continuing to have these sessions, continuing to be as present as possible as we can as a group, to continue to spread the word, to reduce stigma as much as we possibly can, because I believe that's probably the biggest barrier at the moment when it comes to seeing more patients access their medicinal cannabis through their GP that they see, that their pharmacists that they've been seeing for a number of years. It's clear that that's where we need to go, and if we can all continue to have these sessions and spark conversations and remain social, in and out of these conferences, and work closer together, help normalise the conversations. That's my advice.
And amongst doctors, just doing things like joining the cannabis clinicians and joining like Medicinal and those kind of ones where we do have the forums and we do talk and share stories and that kind of thing. It should be about collaborating between doctors and not competing, because there's enough business out there for everyone, and it's only going to get bigger. So doctors, we should be working together as prescribers and nurse practitioners and companies with these sites where we can share our knowledge and let the industry grow as one.
And I think that as different bodies, we need to collaborate and pool our resources and learn to play together better, possibly, because we all have our place and we all have what to contribute. And if we work together and, again, just pool our resources together and support each other, we can do much more than we already do.
We're in our final moments. Are there any burning questions in the audience that you would like to ask physically rather than through your app? Oh, we do have one up the back. Just waiting for a microphone here.
That makes it much easier for me. You made a comment a moment ago about oils being the most commonly prescribed product, which is correct. If you look at data that was released last year by the MCIA, via the Freedom of Information Act, there were approximately close to 700,000 products sold across Australia, of which 73% was for flower. And if you compare the prescribing data, oils were the most commonly prescribed product. So it means that whilst oils are being prescribed by doctors, patients are still going and purchasing flower. So how as a doctor would you reconcile that, knowing that you want a managed dose regime, but patients want flower? How do you reconcile that?
Orit?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a common issue. So educating the patient is the way I choose to go, and I think is the only way to go, really. So often patients want flour, possibly because they've used flour before, or that's what their friends use, or their family members. So I'm explaining, why I believe, or the other doctor believes, that that should not necessarily be the core of management, is really the way to get that collaboration with the patient. So I always explain why an oral formulation should be the foundation of treatment, because of the duration of action, because of the composition of the cannabinoids, and I only use flour as an add-on treatment, as a PRN treatment for breakthrough symptoms. I personally refuse to just prescribe flour, both because I believe that's suboptimal management, but also for me it's a bit of a way to weed out medical patients from the recreational users that just wish to have a script for a flower from a doctor. But I really do not believe that that's the best management for most people, at least. But once I explain it, I really do believe they understand, and I get better compliance this way as well.
Yeah, we did the same as well at Herbal. Generally won't prescribe straight flour unless someone gets an oil on board. But also with dispensing numbers, you know, you're going to be dispensing one 30ml bottle of CBD is going to last a month or so. One 10-gram tub of flour is probably going to last 10 days. So you're going to go through 3 tubs of flour per one bottle, roughly, if that's someone's ratio. So that's also why there's a big dispensing number with the flowers as well.
Exactly, it's a very expensive way to manage your symptoms if you just use flour. Yeah.
Well, our time is up. Feel free to continue sending questions. Oh, we have, Fiona. Fiona, sorry.
Thanks, Carol. And thank you. Really great, passionate panel. I loved it. What is continually frustrating me as a former legislator, but now as someone who's still passionate about moving medicinal cannabis, is the position of the Royal College of GPs and the position of the AMA. And recently the AMA put out a statement, which I mentioned, that don't bother looking for it, it's stupid, that just said there's not enough evidence on medicinal cannabis, so medicinal cannabis patients should not be allowed to drive. No mention of opioids or other impairing medications, but I'm just wondering if you have any ideas about how we move organisations like the AMA, because politically they are still powerful.
This deserves an extra couple of minutes.
Yeah,
I think.
I think if, you know, inviting them to things like, I assume they would have been invited to these type of conferences. It's just getting them to hear and to listen. And an example is of West getting someone in power to come and listen to something is recently what happened when Professor David Nutt toured with Mind Medicine. And then following that, you know, we saw what happened with, you know, he just gave his speech. For example, you certainly listened to his speech. It was like, okay, I cannot argue with this. He's the expert in the world. He's presenting this, and I think that's what got the down scheduling of psilocybin and MDMA. So I think if we can just get these key players to actually come along and hop off their high horse and just come and listen to us, that's a start. But you know, who knows how we can do that? I don't know. I wish I did.
If they want to see the evidence, they need to be present in the room.
They need to be one of
They need to see the patients, see the transformation from unwell to well, spend more time at the doctor's surgeries. You know, it's if they want the evidence, they're going to have to see the anecdotal evidence, because it's everywhere, and it's simple.
Yeah. Here we are, Fiona, 9 years or so later. Lucy Haslam in the front. Here we are 9 years later. We continue. There's a lot still to be done, a lot to be achieved. Do send in your questions if you have further questions. But thank Hugh, Orit, Stephane and James.